Welcome to the third session of the second day of our MS4 forum. So we're talking now about designing and maintaining BMPs. So just really quick, I know you probably heard this already, but I'm going to say it or read it again anyway, that the presentation and information offered as part of this MS4 forum are the views and experiences of the organizations presenting. EPA and the Pennsylvania DEP do not endorse any one approach or funding strategy. The views and the opinions expressed by the speakers and the speakers' organizations are their own and do not reflect those of the EPA or Pennsylvania DEP. Any mention of commercial enterprise product or publication does not indicate an EPA or Pennsylvania DEP endorsement. So I would also like to thank our speakers, Robin and Jamie. So the purpose of this event is to develop and focus on permittees' experiences as they work to meet the conditions of the Pennsylvania MS4 permit. So we appreciate all of the presenters volunteering to share this information and to serve as a learning opportunity for fellow permittees and local decision makers. So Robin and DeYoung and Jamie Pizziali with the EPA are going to be talking a little bit about integrated planning. With that, I'll hand it over to Robin. Take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Robin DeYoung. I'm with US EPA, and I am a senior analyst in the Office of Water at headquarters, and I work with all the regions on integrated planning as well as green infrastructure. So today I'm going to talk about integrated planning and EPA's integrated planning stormwater and wastewater planning framework. We developed the planning framework in 2012, and what it does is it establishes 6 elements that a municipality can follow so that they can look at the stormwater and wastewater Clean Water Act assets to meet any of the regulations that you might have. And it's a voluntary approach for meeting Clean Water Act obligations. And the goal is to comprehensively look at stormwater and wastewater, or you could look at multiple approaches across stormwater assets to meet Clean Water Act obligations, your permits or consent decrees, and it's a long-term solution for municipalities. What's nice about integrated planning is it gives you the flexibility to look at innovative approaches like green infrastructure. And the other thing that is really helpful is that there's guidance documents out there. We have some technical assistance available currently so that if you wanted to look at your alternatives and sequence your projects and prioritize based on community values, do stakeholder outreach, look at adaptive management, integrated planning allows for all that to take place. Since we developed our integrated planning framework in 2012, many years later in 2019, the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act was signed by Congress, and that recognizes our integrated planning framework and drops it into the Clean Water Act. So now the integrated planning is a part of the Clean Water Act, and so municipalities can have a greater certainty that yes, you can use this when you're doing your planning to meet Clean Water Act obligations. The Water Infrastructure Improvement Act also has required us to write a report to Congress that looks across the whole entire nation to see who has done integrated planning since 2012. And I'll be showing you a map of what we found. And that report to Congress is should be released soon. It's at OMB being reviewed, and as soon as everybody okays it, we can put it on our website, and you can read many different case studies of the integrated planning process across the U.S. It also directed EPA to inform municipalities that integrated planning is an option. And this is one venue where we are speaking to municipalities. We also have had 4 different webcasts that have had at least, 400 to 500 participants per webcast listening and learning about integrated planning. So I very much encourage you to take a look at the link at the bottom of the slide or you could just Google integrated planning EPA and it'll come up and you can watch some of the webcasts of other municipalities talk about their process, as well as an overview of the 6 elements of integrated planning, which is really just, good planning process. And it also, the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act also creates the Office of Municipal Ombudsman at EPA in our administrator's office. And Jamie Pizziali will later today be talking about her role. She was hired as the first municipal ombudsman. So it'll be great to know that you do have someone who is a person that you can call at any time if you had questions about Clean Water Act related issues. And then the other thing that I really like about the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act is it formalizes green infrastructure by defining it, and it tells EPA, you are in charge of coordinating across the federal agencies with private and other public partners to educate and to talk about how green infrastructure can be included in enforcement cases, in permitting applications. So that's really exciting because that is a cost-effective, innovative solution. And I've already heard a number of MS4s talk about how that's been helping them with reducing sediment and meeting some of their TMDLs. Here's a map of integrated planning in action. And you can see here we have the blue dots and the orange stars. And the blue dots represent plans that have been completed across the US. They're currently not incorporated into a permit or a consent decree. There might be some negotiation going on. This is as of last December, so December 2020. So Hampton Roads actually should turn into an orange star soon. But this gives you a sense of what's happening across the nation. So the municipalities with orange stars are the ones that have done an integrated plan, and they have put part of their integrated plan or their integrated plan is referenced in a permit, an MPDS permit. It could be an MS4 permit, it could be a combined sewer system permit or a wastewater treatment facility permit, or an integrated permit, which I'm going to talk about next with Richmond. Some of them have been incorporated in consent decree or consent order or an administrative order. And so the integrated plan can be used to meet Clean Water Act obligations and be incorporated into a permit, consent decree, or other enforceable mechanism. So now I'm going to talk about a community example so that you can get a better understanding of how this has worked in the past. I'm going to talk about Richmond, Virginia, their RVA H2O plan. This is a great success story, and we have recordings so that you can hear directly from the municipality on our website, as well as the Virginia DEQ. And so if you wanted to get more details, I encourage you to go there as well after I give you a high-level overview of what has taken place. So Richmond, Virginia, they operate 5 utilities. 2 of them are electric or natural gas, and the other 3 are water, drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater. And within the Richmond area, they do have MS4 area. They also operate their wastewater treatment plant, and they have a combined sewer system. And what was interesting about Richmond is they looked at all of these separate nutrient load requirement reduction requirements that they had. And they decided, because everything was so piecemeal, that they wanted to do an integrated permit that combined both wastewater, stormwater, and their combined sewer system into one watershed management program and one integrated permit. And the pollutants of concerns that they were looking at were bacteria, nutrients, and sediment. So what they did is they developed a plan, and they looked at how they engaged the stakeholders, and they looked at how they could reduce these loads across all of their systems. And many of the projects, to give you just a quick overview, were many green infrastructure capital improvement projects. They looked at the costs of what the operation and maintenance would be for those green infrastructure projects, and they looked at combined sewer overflow infrastructure projects. And so the cost for the plan itself, in terms of how, not the plan, but the cost to implement the plan, was about $431 million. And that's what they proposed to put in their permits for, as related to the integrated plan, among many other things that were going on in the city. So let's see. Sorry, I'm missing a slide here, but one of the other things I wanted to say is that they did extensive stakeholder outreach. And so in 2014, they began this stakeholder process. That's the slide that's missing before this one. So that's what got a little caught off guard. In 2014, they decided to have a very extensive stakeholder process. And this process was driven to gain efficiencies in managing all of the multiple water quality requirements. And there were so many stakeholders involved that they really wanted to get as many groups as possible at the table. So they talked to all of their, many of their community members. They had local nonprofits, the private sector, the general public, and that was a big driver of the integrated planning process, is really getting all the stakeholders at the table and understanding exactly what they needed to do. And they also hired a third-party consultant to facilitate all of those conversations. And that helped build trust between Richmond and the local community, where there wasn't that trust before. And so that stakeholder engagement is essential. So the outcome of that 3-year process was an integrated permit in 2018. They aggregated their load obligations and monitoring requirements. So they were able to do a, you could trade across wastewater treatment facility, the combined sewer system, and the MS4 to meet the Chesapeake Bay TMDL waste load allocations. And that really helped them out a lot, because instead of paying a lot more money to get additional treatment on the wastewater treatment facility, they were able to be more cost effective in looking at adding green infrastructure in the MS4 communities in the combined sewer system, and aggregate what that waste load allocation was not needed across those sources of pollution. And the annual reports are also combined, so that helps with more cost effectively looking at those annual reports. It aggregates, it reduces the reporting redundancy, and it enhances the communication between the combined sewer system and the MS4 facilities. So one other benefit is that the MS4 requirements, there's more flexibility in the project selection and prioritization, because they use the integrated plan, was able to demonstrate how that process took place, and how the milestones will be achieved over a certain period of time. And the stakeholder process also gave them more buy-in for green infrastructure, and they're continually working with the community when implementing the green infrastructure across the board. So as of January of 2020, they have exceeded their targets for some of their green infrastructure projects. So land conservation and stream restoration have been exceeded over time, which is a great story to tell, given all of the stakeholder outreach that they did and the new buy-in that they got. And they're able to get those pollutant reductions for the Chesapeake Bay TMDL. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is long-term stormwater planning. Since this is an MS4 forum, I wanted to explain how you could do a long-term stormwater plan, which is a targeted application for meeting EPA's integrated planning framework in MS4s. So it's possible. So just so you know, there are some integrated plans that just cut across multiple wastewater treatment facilities. And so too, you could have an integrated plan that cuts across multiple MS4s. And I thought the example this morning, looking at York, Pennsylvania, I thought that was really interesting. And I didn't know that they did an integrated water resource plan. And so I'm actually going to go take a look at that, and really excited to see that could possibly be an application as well. So with long-term stormwater planning, it addresses flooding and stormwater pollution. And again, you can synchronize the stormwater projects and look at a long-term solution with incremental milestones of 5 years over a 20 to 30-year period, so that you can comprehensively evaluate your capital improvement plans, your comprehensive plans, all your master plans. You can explore what your asset management programs look like. Think about sustainable financing over time, because you can't pay for it all at once, of course. And then that helps also build capacity and reliability across your infrastructure over time. And then green infrastructure is definitely something we highly recommend looking at for treating stormwater as a cost-effective solution among all of the other possible BMPs that are out there that are also very useful. But green infrastructure can be a resource to treat and help with recharge drinking water supplies. And I've listed some benefits of long-term planning for MS4s. Those of you who have thought long-term and have looked across multiple municipalities or watersheds, you can see, you've probably realized that it does save you money when you're thinking long-term. You can reduce the pollution and flooding with reliable infrastructure. It's very attractive because now if you have a plan in place and you've vetted it with your stakeholders, the community and the residents and everyone knows, okay, well, this is what's going to happen now, and this is this is the plan for the future. And you can always go back to it if someone questions, hey, why are we doing this? And like, remember, we did this planning process and we had buy-in. So there's that certainty and predictability as well across the board. And right now we're partnering with 4 municipalities in these areas on the map: Burlington, Iowa, Rochester, New Hampshire, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and Santa Fe, New Mexico. And we're documenting our process as we provided this technical assistance to these 4 communities. And we are hoping they'll serve examples for other communities who want to do long-term stormwater planning in the future. And here are some resources for permitting resources for MS4s. You can go to this website to take a look at all of them. Many compendiums on what's been happening in permitting approaches. And then we have a few other resources for you. I also include the integrated planning website here. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jamie Pizziali, our Municipal Ombudsman, to talk about her role.
Thanks, Robin. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jamie Pizziali, and as Robin mentioned, I'm EPA's first Municipal Ombudsman, which, as Robin also mentioned, was created by the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act of 2019, which is, of course, the act that also had the distinction of placing integrated planning and green infrastructure into the Clean Water Act. And so while this role is new to me and the agency, as I started as ombudsman in March 2020, I'm not new to EPA. I've been with EPA for 15 years, mostly with our Office of Water in our industrial and municipal wastewater permitting group. Most recently coming from the very same group that Robin works in, our wet weather NPDES group and our National Green Infrastructure Program. So I'm coming to this new role with a lot of background on stormwater, which I think fits really well given the municipal focus. And I've spent a lot of years building relationships across our agency and outside of our agency, and I'm happy I can now bring that really to bear for communities. So I also, of course, had the pleasure to continue to work very closely with Robin and our permitting teams at the agency. And the Office of the Municipal Ombudsman is housed in the Administrator's Office. It's within our Office of Congressional and Intergovernmental Relations, but that basically enables me to have access to really all levels of EPA. And I'm serving as an independent, impartial, and confidential resource for municipalities navigating the Clean Water Act. And of course, the definition of municipality here is broad. It includes cities, counties, districts, utilities, basically anyone with jurisdiction over sewage. And of course, the act gave me some very specific roles, like helping the administrator promote national consistency across all 10 EPA regions, and working directly with communities to provide information on things like federal financial assistance, technical assistance opportunities, flexibilities that might be available under the Clean Water Act, and of course, information on integrated planning. Which is why Robin graciously shared her session today. And finally, I'm also tasked with having a website that links to resources that I mentioned. So on the next slide, Robin, you can see a screenshot of my website. And I linked a lot of really great EPA resources like our Water Finance Clearinghouse, but I also have a list of upcoming webcasts and new EPA resources or upcoming grant opportunities. So if you went there today, you'd find links to our upcoming webcasts on EPA's SWIM model, or on financing green infrastructure with the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, and more. So I encourage you to go there. But what is an ombudsman anyway? It wasn't a term that I was used to hearing all the time before I became one. But basically, it's an alternate informal way to resolve issues. So lots of organizations, both public and private, use them. But thinking about like when might someone actually want to reach out? Of course, if you already have existing local, state, or EPA contacts that are working well, please just go ahead and continue to utilize those contacts first, because that means that our processes are working, and that's the best case scenario, right? But you're certainly welcome to reach out to me directly by phone or email, or anytime you need assistance on Clean Water Act issues. So if in doubt, just reach out, really. And if confidentiality is something that's important to you, I also recommend that you actually pick up the phone too. It's just easier that way. And so when an issue is brought to me, I can help, review the scenario and maybe help with things like facilitate discussions or act as a convener, provide options, or maybe it's brainstorming available resources or sharing EPA contacts or state contacts in a lot of cases. Maybe it's just best practices from EPA programs, or maybe you've just heard some slightly different things from various offices and just need a little help tracking down one answer. That's also something I could help with. Or you have a question maybe that you want to ask, but you don't necessarily want it attached to you. I'm able to ask it from our offices and maintain a level of confidentiality. So maybe you just need a sounding board. That's another thing that I've offered in the past. So another important role I play within the agency is as a member of internal EPA work groups. So I serve as a sort of consultant for agency groups to provide feedback on rulemakings or guidance or other projects that the agency is working on. And I, of course, have more of an eye to municipalities and help, kind of act as an advocate for a fair process there. And this includes projects like stormwater permitting or our Clean Water Act affordability, green infrastructure, integrated planning, small community concerns, and a lot of other projects. But that's another reason you might want to reach out to make sure that I'm informed on your specific community concerns. while I don't serve really as a formal notice to EPA and I don't make decisions or legal determinations for EPA, it's just really helpful to keep me informed on important issues because I get to work regularly across the agency on all of these concerns. So I'm certainly looking forward to continuing to work closely with communities as we are all working on a wide variety of competing concerns on stormwater and advanced treatment needs, affordability, equity, COVID-19, just to name a few. So we're certainly going to need to work hard on more innovative ways to address our Clean Water Act issues in stormwater and beyond, really. I also work externally with groups like the National League of Cities or National Association of Counties and others like the Water Environment Federation and those sorts of Clean Water Act groups. So I encourage you to visit our Municipal Ombudsman website. It has really helpful FAQs that detail kind of what I do and what I don't do, and my contact information, which you can see here, and links to all those EPA resources and a lot of the things that Robin's working on are linked there too. And I hope that you'll share that link broadly. So thank you again for letting me introduce this role today. And I think now we're going to take questions on integrated planning and all the great examples Robin gave. And because this is still a really new role for the agency, I really do encourage you to weigh in on any specific issues that you think the Ombudsman might be helpful with. So it sounds like I'll turn it back to Jason, which is great to see a familiar face. You guys got like the A team here, that's for sure.
Yep, Jamie, good to see you. Okay, thank you, Robin and Jamie. It was an excellent presentation, and we can either go ahead and put your questions in the chat, or I think at this point, if you want to take yourself off mute and go ahead and ask the question directly to Jamie and Robin, that would be great as well. If we get too much traffic, we can use the raise your hand feature up here in the top corner there, but go right ahead.
Hey, Jason, it's Liz from
Liz?
Region 3. I just had a quick question. What do you guys think is the best way for us to get the word out on integrated planning to some of these, we're working with Pennsylvania here and they have a lot of smaller municipalities and, a lot of the examples are, some larger cities and stuff like that. But how do you think is the best way for us to try to get the word out to some of these smaller areas that might not know what even integrated planning is or that it's available for them?
So I'll certainly defer to Robin on any specific smaller community examples that folks, that we might be able to share. But, we have integrated planning fact sheets, and I think those are all really helpful. I'm hoping also to hear from this group, like if their audience, it sounds like perhaps that might be a good idea for a future, actual focused project where we talk about integrated planning in small communities and provide, some really specific examples, because I feel like that's what I see folks respond the best to.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. We do have, we've done some national webinars, but we could also do some regional or specific webinars in the Region 3 area. There are some smaller community examples that might be helpful. We're thinking about doing a small community workshop in the summer to help people get started. So that might be a good way to entice some people to think about how to get started with integrated planning. So yeah, happy to brainstorm some ideas. This is a great forum to at least get people to know about it.
Yeah.
So I think there's so many different ways that we could reach out to the communities, and then also, the Pennsylvania DEP, it might be helpful to talk directly with them, with Region 3, and give them an overview of what we've seen as success stories with integrated planning, because a lot of times we've seen more municipalities do integrated planning when the state is out there supporting it and talking about it. And we saw that in Missouri. Missouri even has their own tool to help municipalities look at the financial capability analysis that goes along with integrated planning. And they have the most municipalities that have been doing integrated planning within one state because of the outreach that the state is providing to the permittees. So I think that's probably a good place to start to get the word out. And if municipalities know that it's supported by the state, then there's more likelihood that it'll happen. And because people want certainty that their planning process and all the time and effort that they put into it is going to turn into something that's fruitful.
Yeah, we've certainly heard that, the state participation was a little bit of a concern. So we've really focused some efforts with the AQUA, the Association of Clean Water Act Administrators, and Robin put on a really good state roundtable to try and spread the word there too. And of course, events like this, it's really helpful when we get invited and actually get to spread the word, because as much as we hear every day that the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act made this really official. Integrated planning is in the Clean Water Act as an option. We know that not everyone is hearing that as much as we certainly are. So thanks for letting us present today, of course, and happy to go to other events that come up, Liz.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, we do have a question in the chat. So it's, how often do you get calls from Pennsylvania? And what would you say is the most common request?
Well, so far I haven't released sort of numbers on that, and from a confidentiality perspective, not ready to do that yet. But I've certainly heard about TMDLs and nutrient pollution are two things that come to mind for Pennsylvania, along with stormwater, of course. And that's why we're all here, right? So those are some of the big topics. But if there are others that you would want to make sure that I'm plugged into, it's always helpful to know, because there's probably a work group going on at the agency that I can be plugged into, internally. So.
Okay. We still have a few more minutes that we could ask some questions. If there's anyone has a question for Jamie or Robin, go ahead. Okay, I'll ask
the other thing is, I'm curious, like, we have a small group, if anyone, why people are interested in integrated planning who have attended today.
Right, and I don't mean to call anyone out, but I see Pam is with us, who had a great presentation earlier about integrated planning in York County. Pam, maybe you could share some of your insights and motivation for why you took that approach.
Yes, we took the integrated water breach because we thought it was important. We're always focused on the big picture, and the only way you can really understand the big picture is to look at everything on an integrated methodology. So that's why we went that route. We're trying to educate municipalities. I would, have some interest in, an integrated permit. I don't know how that, in Pennsylvania, we're dealing with, like York County alone, we're dealing with 72 municipalities. We brought them together for the regional pollutant reduction plan, but yet they all have their own MS4 permit. That's why we were hoping to maybe create a stormwater authority, where then the stormwater authority could be the permit holder, and get things integrated further, maybe under a single permit. So we do have some interest there. So maybe I could see maybe some future conversations with you all to see how we're moving forward. And we also have interest on, potentially changing the MS4 permit in the county so that you can, do things more outside your planning area, because we also in Pennsylvania have the countywide action plan for clean water, which is part of the PA Phase 3 WIP, you know, which has a nitrogen reduction target for York County. And if we could do use our PRP money to do projects anywhere in the county, we could reduce a lot more sediment and meet the nitrogen target much more easily. So we're always thinking of, ways to change things and do things better and more easily for municipalities. So that's all part of that integrated discussion.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else who's considering an integrated planning approach that wants to share, or while you have Jamie and Robin, go ahead and ask some questions about that process? Okay. So I had a little follow up on the first question. They're just wondering about if there are any residents that are calling from Pennsylvania, and if they are there any common threads you see?
Yeah, so I will say that my office is still pretty new, and it was stood up during a pandemic. So I will say that I think my volume of calls is not as high as it would have been or will be. I don't think I've had any residential calls from Pennsylvania. It's certainly, my focus is definitely more municipalities, but I've certainly gotten residential calls about folks, water utility bills, and concerns about drinking water, actually, which, I've done my best to connect them to the best resources in the state and local areas, usually when those sorts of issues are a little outside of my scope. But yeah, sorry, I don't have anything more interesting to offer there yet.
Okay, so it sounds like we're also, the planning commission there has consulted them to incorporate countywide action plan goals in the comprehensive plan. So there's not much involvement in planning in the history, but we hope to keep moving forward. So it sounds like they're maybe not defining things as integrated planning, but there is some attempt to collaborate and incorporate some of these elements in some countywide action plans.
Yeah, I think we see that a lot, and we've certainly seen a lot of communities who are really interested in making sure that as they're making investments that there's sort of this visible component, right? Like some of the benefits of green infrastructure is that it's above ground in a lot of cases, and it certainly can provide community amenities. So definitely encourage everyone to think about it. It's also interesting, or be interesting to know, like if we came back in a year, like what sort of resources would you like us to come back with? Is it fact sheets? Is it more webcasts? More tools?
Yeah, that would be really helpful. And one thing that I tell people who are trying to get started with integrated planning is that there are many things that municipalities are already doing that can be factored into an integrated plan. Many municipalities already have a capital improvement plan. They might have a master plan. They might be already looking at their assets and doing a conditions assessment. And what integrated planning helps do, or this long-term stormwater planning idea, is it just brings all the pieces together, and it gives you a framework for engaging with stakeholders and thinking about, how can the community priorities as well as the Clean Water Act obligations and requirements, how can they can be merged and do a prioritization of what's important, where you can get the reductions the quickest over time, at the most cost-effective rate. And you can also, look at financial capability analysis through the integrated planning process, and we have documents on that. And then, so there's a lot of things that municipalities are already doing, and I think you definitely can look across municipalities as one option for your long-term stormwater approach.
Okay. So do have another question in the chat. Do we know whether DEP is considering integrated planning in any other areas besides Harrisburg? I don't know if you've all heard anything, and again, don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I see Jamie Eberl is still on the phone. Maybe that's a good question for you, Jamie.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to check with our regional offices if anyone is considering going that route. I will say that it is a challenge in Pennsylvania, just the scale of our permittees, that we work with so many small boroughs, townships, because our MS4 permits are on that level. It's certainly a challenge to bring all the groups necessary together that would be needed for an integrated plan. But going forward, Jamie and Robin, if you can provide, if you do work with smaller municipalities, if you can provide some case studies, examples, that's certainly something that Pennsylvania would be interested in seeing.
Okay, great. Yeah, and we are, there is one in New Hampshire. It's actually 3 municipalities that have worked together to look at nutrient tracking and trading. So that we're in the process of actually building out those case studies for that area. Exterior, Townsfield, and Stratham, New Hampshire, which are pretty small towns. Boone, Iowa is another small town in Iowa that it wrote its own integrated plan. And then Rolla, Missouri is the other small community that developed their integrated plan. And I think Rolla, Missouri's plan is very well done. And those are all on our website that are in the link on the slides. But let me put that also in the chat so that you guys can quickly just click on it. So all of the integrated plans that we are aware of are on this integrated planning website.
Yeah, so if you don't see yours on there, let us know.
Yeah, so that's why I was excited. I didn't know about York's integrated plan until today. So that's definitely something I'm going to look at. And I think it was developed in 2011. I don't know if it's been updated, but we did only put the integrated plans that we're aware of in the report to Congress that were developed after the June 2012 integrated planning framework was developed at EPA. So let's see, Jason, why don't I just share my screen really quickly. So this is the web page, and if you just go to on the right hand side, if you go to Municipal Integrated Plans, you will see the same map and then a list of all of the plans here with and if there was an implementation mechanism that is publicly available, we link to that so you can and it's all alphabetical by the municipality's name. So you need, looks like I need to add roll up, but so and that's the area. And then we also have technical assistance available to states and to municipalities. This technical assistance is available for state permitting authorities who are reviewing an integrated plan or municipalities who have been developing one. And all you need to do is you can click on this link and you can talk to our Environmental Finance Center, who we've partnered with. And this is more information about the integrated planning technical assistance that's available through August of this year. So highly recommend you guys reaching out to Evan Kirk or Ellen Kohler, who is supporting this work right now.
Yeah, sorry, this is Liz again. We are, to get the word out, I guess you could say, we just tried to do I'm working with our communications people to do some social media sort of blasts. I don't know who that will get to or how, but that technical assistance is one of the things that we're trying to get the word out, since it's only until August and it's already May, and we really want people to get out there if they can, to utilize this assistance that's out there. So, I mean, that's one of the things we're doing now. I guess my concern is not everybody uses social media, but we're trying to figure out different ways to get like the word out about integrated planning. And I think they want us to put Richmond up there as our success story as well on our Region 3 page. So anybody that's on here that might follow our EPA social media blogs and pages and Twitter and those things, hopefully we'll be seeing stuff soon.
Okay.
Yeah, another successful way to get the word out is I've submitted a few articles to the nonprofits who are helping multiple municipalities with their newsletters. So I think newsletter outreach, it would be a great way to get the word out to our targeted audience.
Okay. Well, I think that's it for the time for this session. Thank you again, Robin and Jamie, for excellent presentation and discussion. I think, again, for the instructions, I'm sure you all have it figured out by now, but it's best to leave this meeting and then you can go log in. The next one is BMP case study. So I have a 5-minute introduction from Shauna Stevens, and then you can pick one of the 3 case studies. So I'll see you all over there.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.